This is Usama Fayyad, Executive Director of the Institute for Experiential AI at Northeastern University. Would like to share with you a few thoughts around the executive order that came out of the White House directed at all the federal agencies. I was pleased to see this order come out. I was pleased to see the scope, that it included urging agencies to fund and drive research, especially on standards, especially on responsible AI, on the responsible use of the technology, and paying attention to many topics that are important that affect consumer privacy, civil liberties, issues of equity and access, enabling communities to have access to data sets. So a lot of that is very positive. It's likely to have very good impact on the research funding, the research agenda. As we all know, the government is a large buyer of AI products and services. So this will kind of direct them to do the right buying in the right spaces and to think about these topics that are important. I wish, in some ways, that these directives came with a few more teeth in them. We all know it's not the job of the executive branch to legislate. So we don't expect regulation to come out of this. And I think one of the positive impacts of a directive like this is it will stimulate and maybe provoke Congress to begin to think faster, harder about topics having to do with regulation and legislation. And this will come from the fact that the agencies will hopefully heed the call and the directive and start kind of preferring, for example, responsible AI over more questionable practices and so forth. Where it falls short is I wish that this directive came with more teeth in it. What do I mean by that? I mean, it's not enough to just direct agencies to pay attention to something or to develop standards in a certain area. While that's positive, it's more important to basically say, hey, here's the budget allocation that we want you to put. Take 5% of your budgets and redirect them to this area, 10%, whatever that number is. That creates more of a forcing function that basically says now the directive has meaning because it has to translate to work, it has to translate to achievements, it has to translate to projects where people will be held accountable. I think that was definitely within the remit of the White House. Don't get me wrong, I am grateful that we are thinking about this and we are establishing thought leadership and we are urging the agencies to do the right thing. But I think we could have required them to do more through budgetary directives, through creation of a fund, through requirements, for example, to make data accessible. As an example, I used to work at NASA, where one of the directives at NASA was, since the work is funded by the US taxpayer, any US taxpayer can ask for access to the data collected by NASA in its exploratory missions, and they would have access to it. They would get a copy of it even. Something like that could be made a requirement of a lot of our agencies that collect a lot of socioeconomic status data, a lot of disease data, a lot of information on drug trials, a lot of information that should be made not just public, but should be made more accessible in a way that makes it easier for universities to conduct research on that data, for individuals to conduct research, for people to explore, for companies to create tools to browse the data and use it, and so forth. All of that awareness would be very helpful to the field of AI. The other thing where it fell short, in my opinion, is there could have been programs directed at education, all the way from AI literacy to how does AI fit in your business or work, to what is the technical use of AI and how to do it properly, to how to develop expertise areas in AI. All of these could come with programs that, for example, would dedicate budgets for education, K through 12, education in higher ed, education in lifetime learning. No matter what the directive comes out, we'll always have our wish list. I'm glad this directive is out. I'm glad it addressed the areas that it did. I wish it addressed it with more rigor and vigor, primarily through budget allocation and directives for new funds and new programs.